little bit. Do I need to move it back now? Let's move it forward. There we go. Tiny bit. Perfect. You know, because I'm a perfectionist and all. Well, I've learned to let go of perfectionistic tendencies because otherwise you turn into a control freak and that's no good for anybody. All right. How are we today? This afternoon, this evening, good morning, wherever you are in the world. So my name is Hannah, for those of you who haven't been to one of my live streams before, so hi. And this is an open slate. So if you've got questions, you need answers, you can ask anything about anything. I've got like so much stuff that I want to talk about because the intense transformations that I've been through in the last 3 months specifically, like it's just huge. And I've been like full on just dealing with those transformations. And there's been so much I want to share with you along the way. And it just hasn't felt time or right. And so now I'm like, okay, now I can be like, say all those things. And I'm like, but I don't know if it's relevant anymore. In a way. So this is your opportunity to ask me any questions about anything. So go right ahead. I'm waiting for your questions. Whilst I'm waiting, I'm just going to share this live stream as I always do. And I'll concentrate on this. Okay. Sharing this in one more place. Perfect. Hello. All right, now I'm just gonna bring up the comments so I can see all this here. Perfect. Hi, everybody. There's lots of people here. Awesome. Do I know you're alien? I think we've all got alien blood in us. Let's be real. Hello. All right, awesome. Does anyone have any questions? Or are we gonna sit here for beautiful presence and eye time? Hi. Type in your questions away. I'm listening. Hi, Leanne. We can just sit here, have presence. It's nice to be still. Question in regards to anything. Anything at all. Ask me anything about anything. Nicola says, so I've had COVID twice now, but I feel okay. Luckily for me. Will I be okay, do you know, long term? Okay, so do you mind if I ask if you've had the vaccine at all? And that would be my first question before I answer that. What's up, Moon? So if anyone's got any questions about anything, ask away. Nicola says, I've had vaccines. Okay. Well, the thing is that we have to remember that when we choose to get a vaccine, and I know there's been, you know, like instances in the last couple of years where people have had to do it for their livelihoods, right? So, you know, that's a choice that we make. But as with any vaccine, like whether we're talking about COVID or, you know, any other like childhood measles or like whatever we've done in the past, like the reality of a vaccine is that they actually inject you with the disease. Like for measles or whatever, they're injecting you with other things, I'm sure, but they're actually injecting you with the measles to build your immune system up to it. Like, do you know what I mean? So we have to remember that when we choose to do something like that, we're literally putting it in our body. So when our body like has it, like I want to say you're gonna, I don't know, like it's interesting, right? Because they say, well, it's supposed to protect you from it and your immune system is supposed to build up to it. And I'm like, well, you know, like there's a lot of people who haven't even had COVID and they haven't even had a vaccine. Like, you know what I mean? So, you know, it's like, it's important to understand that when you are getting a vaccine, you're actually injecting your body with it. Now, as we know, different bodies are going to hold and react to different things in different ways, right? The thing is that there is ways to detox vaccines out of your body, and then also ways to detox your body and get super healthy so that your body does have a strong immune system itself, whether you've got a vaccine or not. So in the sense of like, you know, when you ask like, will I be okay? And I'm like, well, I don't know, will you? Like the reality is that you create your reality, okay? Like, will I be okay? Like, well, are you going to like change your lifestyle and get like super healthy and change your diet and exercise and do detoxes? Like your health is really in your hands. You know, like people are like, well, will I get healthy? Will I get better? And I'm like, well, are you willing to exercise every day? Are you willing to cut out all the crap in your diet and actually do a proper detox? And do you know what I mean? So it's like, you know, when you say like, will I be okay? And I'm like, how willing are you willing to like, you know, be okay? Because that's really in your hands. That's not like, yes, you're going to be fine, Nicola. No, you're going to die. Like, I don't know, because nothing is set in stone. Nothing ever is set in stone. Your future depends on what you do today and your next today and your next today and your next today. If you're not going to change anything and you're going to, you know, like stay, you know, in unhealthy situations or eating the same crappy foods that's not making you any better, like, you know, like, of course, well, you know, it's kind of like, of course you're going to get sick if you may, because you're not doing anything different. If you really want to be okay, you're going to stop eating the crap that's making your body sick. You're going to learn about nutrition. You're going to learn about taking your health back, and you're going to exercise every day. Like, so, you know, will I be okay? Well, that's up to you. That's really up to you. Yeah? This is probably not what you wanted to hear, but I'm always here for the truth. Yeah? So Leanne says, what's happening with the energies? Good question. It has felt, I know I've been through a massive transformation in the last 3 months. However, the last 3 months has felt like almost a steamroller has gone through. It has felt like, the way I described it to one of my clients the other day was, it feels like what I can see and hear when I feel into it. Obviously it's kind of not that, but I don't know, is it? Do we know? So, you know, like the big old stone wheels, like, I don't know, they've got a piece of metal through them and it's a stone wheel of whatever. It feels like that. It's like the sound even of that, and it feels like it's like, and this is interesting, right? So what's coming to mind is back in November, December, so I think it was December, and whatever astrological conjunction happened, or, you know, lineup hadn't happened since the mid 1600s. Remember we spoke about that, I think, and that's when the USA was founded. And in December, Pam Gregory, the astrologer, spoke about that astrological lineup hadn't happened since the mid 1600s, right? And it was, you know, it was like for everyone, but it was specifically about the USA chart, and it was like when it was founded. And so it hasn't happened since the mid 1600s. And she's like, it's basically going to fall apart. Now, they were not her words, right? But when, you know, like the astrological lineup, like she did say it would take a good 6 months, even longer, for, you know, that to start being in effect, right? And it's not like it happens overnight, but that's when it first starts. And it feels like this big, like, I'll just call it a stone wheel, has been rolling in that direction, right? Like, with the USA being in charge or whatever. I know they're not in charge, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, all over these couple of centuries. And it's kind of like, it's in the last 6 months, it's come to a grinding halt. And it just feels like that stone wheel has slowly come to a grinding halt. And everyone, I feel, has felt the pinch in the last maybe month or 6 weeks. You know, especially everyone's just like, wow, what's happening? And now it feels like it's starting to move forward again. It feels like something's shifted and it's starting to move forward. Not necessarily that stone wheel, but it's just like, oh, something's let go. And it does feel like a huge, like, lift has happened for humanity. It feels like there's been a big unlock. It feels like there's been a big, I don't know about reset, you know, and for quite some time, maybe the last like 8 months, I have been saying, I'm like, the trajectory of what we have thought was going to happen with world stuff has changed. Like, and I feel that so strongly in my bones. And if we just take a look around, like, so many people waking up, and not even that, like, things are changing, you know, and it's like, well, this isn't what they said was going to happen, or the predictions happen. And this is the same thing, like when Nicola asked me, like, will I be okay? And I'm like, well, nobody can predict the future, because it depends on what you do today, tomorrow, and the next day about your health, like the choices that you make and you exercise and those sorts of things, right? And so when we look at that, it's like, you know, the same goes for the world stuff. The same goes for like the evolution of human consciousness. Like, nothing is set in stone. Like, the timelines are changing all the time. Like, the trajectory of where we're heading is, like, you know, shifting depending on people's choices, thoughts, actions, waking up, not waking up, whatever. Like, it's up to us. And it's all changing all the time, yeah? So with the energies at the moment, I feel like there's a bit of forward movement. I feel around September, sort of October, it might almost come to a grinding halt again, but it's not that. It's just like there'll be another sort of like shift, if you may, shift in direction. And then I feel it'll keep going until like about sort of April-ish, April, May, in that same sort of trajectory. And then I feel like it'll sort of shift again up until August next year. So I don't know, that was just a little download that came through about that. So Leanne says, I'm curious, has the black dot dash thing you saw changed? Okay, can you just remind me what you mean about the black dot dash thing? Do you mean about the timelines? Because that's actually been in my mind. Because, you know, like, and I was thinking about this, so this is interesting, just the other day, and how in 2018, it was about April 2018, I remember doing a live stream about it, and it was very much around like, I was like, I kept getting the message, it's not linear anymore. It's this, like, it's horizontal, like, it's not linear anymore. Like, and there was the sense, it was like, okay, it's not this way anymore, it's this way. It's like, it's this way rather than up and down or something. And then it's like, probably must have been about 2020, I think it would have been, or maybe 2021. I can't remember exactly about this bit, but it was around like the timelines are not timelines anymore. Like, you know, we think about a timeline or a, you know, a timeline or a, what's it called? A timeline or a parallel reality. Sorry, that's what I was trying to think. So it's like timelines or parallel realities. I know they're slightly different, but if we look at timelines to parallel realities, and I was thinking about it because I was like, oh, the timelines keep shifting. And then it was like, no, they're not lines anymore. They're actually dots. Like, and they're sort of like little dots sort of, I don't know, moving around. You can jump to each sort of dot. It's not a line anymore. You know, that was the sort of sense there about that. And then, so, and the black line. Okay, so, just checking your comments here. Yeah, and so the timelines, and like I said, I was getting that message, right? I was getting the message that timelines have changed. And then, and do you know what has felt, okay, this is what it's felt like lately. So, you know, and this is over several years, right? Like I said, that first shift from like, it's not linear anymore to it's this, to, that was 2018. And then, I don't know if it was 2019 or 20. and then I got the message that it's not like lines anymore, it's little dots. I think it was only recent, like last year or something. Anyway, and then like this energy, you asked me like the energies recently, right? And I'm like, yes, the big stone wheel. And then also, I've been getting this word, right? I've been saying, I'm like, it feels so discombobulated or whatever that word is. Yeah, like discombobulated or whatever the word is, right? And just like disjointed but discombobulated or something, like, you know, and I'm like, it's not really a word that I usually use, but I'm like, it really describes the energies. And it also has felt like, you know, if it is true that the timelines are now dots, and then it's felt like this merging of like, I want to say the merging of the dots. And this is so interesting, right? Because the discombobulated feeling is like, is it a merging of the dots? Sorry, I'm just trying to describe the energy. So the discombobulated is like a merging, but it's a let go, and it's a shift in and it's a shift out, but it's like, you know when we see on the movies and stuff and they're like merge into another realm and they come back and it's sort of like all in bits of pieces, like, or long wavy lines because we're lighter, like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's what the energies felt like in the past, you know, sort of 3 months or so, you know, not all the time, but there's certain things, and especially in the last 2 weeks leading up to the end of the main calendar, and it was very like total different realities, like, you know, discombobulated energy sort of like around the place in different areas. And, you know, and what's interesting is that integration, because what I have actually felt like, because obviously I've been like, I'm like, what is happening, you know, and we look at the universe or whatever. And so, and do you know the sense that I was also getting, and this doesn't really make sense, but it does. So when we look at shifting to a whole new frequency, yeah, when we look at a whole new frequency of, you know, like shifting to a new vibration and a high level of frequency or consciousness or whatever we're vibrating at, right? Like, and I feel like as a collective, as a universe, as a solar system, as whatever you want to say it as, right? You know, like when we're shifting to another frequency, it's a bit like the wheel scenario, right? When we look at, you know, like a car driving along and you see the wheel going around when it's going slow, and then when it's driving on the highway, like the car wheel's going so fast, you know it's going so fast, but you can't actually see it turning around, but it's going so fast it doesn't look like it's moving, but we know it is, but you can't see it spinning around, and that's like shifted to another frequency. So, you know, and a lot of people have said that time's been speeding up, time's changing, like, and that's also a reality, yeah. And it's sort of like we've like been like speeding up the last couple of years, and then all of a sudden it's kind of like, you know, come to this grinding halt. But it's like, and this is where it doesn't make sense. It's like, yeah, if we're shifting to another frequency, it's gone so fast, it's like whoop, shifted to another frequency. Is this where we're now like trying to integrate and understand these new energies? Or is it like, you know, the other sense that I was getting is like, this is where, you know, it's come to a grinding halt, and now we're like, okay, now where are we merging into? Like, where's the new thing that we're landing on, so to speak, even though there's nowhere to land, but you know what I mean? That's sort of like the sense of energies there. So yeah, so the earth is spinning faster, yes, and the earth is spinning faster, so the pole shift is a real thing at the moment. Stars are in different places in the sky, and they've always been in the same place for many years, like literally on a compass point. You know, like it's like 30 degrees west, north is 30 degrees west now. Now, there's always a bit of variation in the poles, like always, but has it been 30 degrees, and is it now always at 30 degrees west? Like when you look at a compass point, and you know, the other thing is that even mainstream people are noticing like the sun is coming in different windows. So it's never been in that window when they've been in that house for 30 years. Like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, sun is rising in a different position, same as the moon. Yeah, and the moon's different. And do you know what's so weird? The other morning, or I don't know, maybe about 3 weeks ago, and I put it on my story. I was like, oh, the moon was like rising directly where the sun is, and I, you know, it was like in the sky just then. I was like, oh, you know, didn't really think much of it at the time, and I put it on my story. I'm like, oh, the moon's there. And then like, I think it was last night, I saw the moon up in the sky over there, and then I was like, oh yeah, that's where I usually see it, because it comes up behind the trees. Like I don't see it for ages when it rises because it comes up behind the trees. And I was like, what is it doing over there? like, you know, in the space of 3 weeks. And then I saw this other thing, and it was like, you know, when we look at, like, there's the twin solar system, and there's all the planets in the sky that we've been told are not there. And a little side note I've been thinking about, you know how, like the flat earth theory. So I don't really believe in either or. I'm just sort of like, show me the information. This is really interesting. But, the thing that came up, like that I was thinking about it, and it's been in my mind, is like the firmament. You know how people are like, okay, we're in a big dome and it's the firmament and whatever. And I'm like, well, I don't think that they're wrong picking up that. I think that what they are picking up is the other realm. Like, sure, it's like the atmosphere, but it's more like the realm walls, you know, like that, because that stuff's real, and portals, and but realm walls and moving into other frequencies of dimension. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, that stuff's still real. So, you know, it's like, I don't think there's any wrong or right with any of it there. Okay. So yeah, and so where are we right now with all of that? To be honest, I don't know. Like, but I feel like we have shifted into another sort of frequency bandwidth as a collective, as a solar system, as a universe, and that's what is like changing the trajectory. I always get that word wrong, so bear with me, right? Or maybe I am saying it correctly, I don't know. So, you know, that's why I keep, you know, the trajectory has changed, you know, like people even noticing that themselves. But I also feel it's something way bigger than us. Like the poles are shifting, there's planets showing up in the sky where they've always been there, but more people are seeing them now. You know, like the compass shifting, like, you know, for real, you know. So, you know, it's just a few things like that it's, you know, even the last few years, everyone's like, hey, stock up on food, survival, like all that stuff, because, you know, whatever the world stuff's happening and they're doing to us. And I'm like, I think it's bigger than that. I'm like, the pole shift, which has been predicted for a long time, and, you know, and things are speeding up, and like planets and star alignments and, you know, suns coming in different windows, and the compass is like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, it's way bigger than the world stuff. It's way bigger than that, guys. Like, it's so far out of your brain capacity, and that's why you're like, no, it's not. You know, when everyone's like bringing something new, and they're like, nah, and then they're like, can you teach me about that? Show me how to do it, right? It's always the way. Okay. Do you think it might be silence before the storm when the lion's gate open? Yes and no. Like, ultimately, so someone asked as well about what end of calendar. So the Mayan calendar, so you know how it's like Chinese New Year, or you know, the Islamic New Year's just happened as well. Like, you know, there's our New Year, like there's all, like throughout the year there's all these New Years, right? So the Mayan calendar has also just had their end of year basically, and the new calendar's started. Was it last week or the week before? So, oh yeah, and I guess I'm saying that because, you know, what did you just say? Sorry, I'm looking at all these other comments here too. Will there be silence? And I'm like, well, is that the day out of time for the end of Mayan calendar, and then the start of the new calendar? Like, they call it a day out of time when it's ending, day out of time, and then the new calendar starts. Like, has that just happened? Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. You were just told to mark your dot. There you go. Okay, more solar flares too, and a new planet behind the sun. Yeah, definitely. All of that stuff is all coming out as well. For sure. All right, so I'm just gonna go back to check these ones. So is Sabrina still here? So Kelly says, I'm still having trouble with controlling energy, and I suffer from anxiety. It affects my mind and it hurts. I don't know how to control my mind. I suffer from nervous system trauma. So I would be working at healing the nervous system trauma, because it is possible to heal. It does take time and working with the correct people to be able to heal that, and being around the right people to heal that for sure. And also, like, you know, dietary changes, and, you know, even location changes. So like, you know, your geographic location changes. It's not about running away from places, not from that aspect, but sometimes putting ourselves in a different environment heals as well, right? So yeah, it would be looking at really working on that, like the nervous system trauma, healing trauma, you know, understanding energy, being able to, you know, work with all of that. That's all we cover. Not all, we cover a lot of things, but in trust intuition, that's like a basis of what we're working with, is like shifting out the trauma, because we can't trust our intuition or understand energy if we're carrying all this trauma. Like, we're just, you know, go crazy all the time, right? So trying to understand it even. Yeah. Okay, Sabrina's still here. Day at a time is 26. Thank you. Okay. And is Bianca still here? What do I know about astrology? Can I tell the future? Okay, so as I said, I don't predict the future. Like, everybody, every single person, right? And especially those who have trained their skills in their psychic awareness and what have you, can predict the future. We can. Why? Because we see what's going to happen. But that's not the only option and slash timeline that's going to happen, because that's only going to happen if you continue to make the same choices today, tomorrow, the next day. If you choose to make something different and change what you're going to do when you like pack up and move house and move to a different location, like, you're not going to live that future anymore. You're going to live this future, for example. So, you know, like, of course, as a psychic, we see future, right? And some people even get scared of the visions and everything that they end up seeing, right? But what's really important to understand is that that's not set in stone. Like, you'll be shown a vision for so many different reasons, and it's understanding the language of your intuition of like why you are being shown that. And that's what we do in Trust the Intuition in my course, which the early bird is open now, guys. If you haven't seen it, early bird is open for my Trust the Intuition course. We start in February next year, so the early bird is open now. Then it's a 6-month training that we do next year on Zoom. So yeah. And that's one of the first things that I teach you guys in there. It's like, we can predict the future, but it's not the only future option, right? And I get so frustrated and angry, like, you know, with like people who are like, this is what's going to happen and you're going to die. And it's like, that person follows that path. Why? Because that person told them. And it's like, dude, that is so unethical. So unethical to tell anyone's future. Like, it's not set in stone at all, at all, at all. Okay. So, and Kelly, and you just said here as well, I pick up people's energy. I still don't know how to absorb it, how not to absorb it, where anxiety comes into play. Like, there's many different aspects for anxiety. And again, like, you know, when you say I pick up people's energy, but I don't know how to not absorb it, like all that stuff, we go into detail and teach and Trust Intuition, because there's a difference between like putting protection walls up and actually carrying a whole pile of trauma. And you're gonna, you know, it's like a big weight and a big vacuum where you're just gonna keep sucking everyone's energy in until you like help shift that out of your body and build your strength back up ultimately. Do you know what I mean? And so that's why it's so important to look at and work on the stuff that's holding you back. So again, Trust the Intuition, it's where it's all at, yeah? And it's a 6-month training for a reason. Like, it's not like, oh, we're gonna like shift this overnight. Like, we can shift stuff overnight, but if you really want the tools for life, like, I go into so much depth, hence why it's a 6-month training, right? There's a lot that I talk about all the time for a reason, and I'm like, that's why it's a 6-month training, not just like a 2-hour live stream, in a way. All right, so I'm still getting through the questions. Does anybody else have any questions? Okay, so you can type them in, I'm getting them. Sabrina says, I'm having a hard time with boundaries. I feel like people drain my energy. When I'm with someone, I don't want to tell them I have to go because they are draining me, or if we're not vibing, I will make an excuse, but those excuses make me feel like I'm lying. How do I excuse myself from their presence without being blunt, but also not making excuses? Well, I want to say it's not making an excuse, right? It's an alignment to your soul truth that this is not in alignment for my highest good because I'm feeling drained by this person. Now, you know, those words of like, I'm feeling drained by this person, some people are like, you're being a victim. You're not taking your power back. You should be strong enough not to absorb it. And I'm like, it depends on the fucking situation. I'm like, if you're in a domestic violence, toxic relationship and situation, I'm like, the best thing to do is get the fuck out of there and then deal with the issues of why you're still absorbing their energy. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like, it's such a fine line. And I want to say, like, I don't think it's an excuse. It's a soul alignment to your truth that this is not in alignment anymore and I need to leave. There's nothing fucking wrong with that. I think you need to own that, yeah? So how do I excuse myself? You just say, okay, I've got to go to my next appointment, got to go take care of myself because that's a reality. Like, do you know what I mean? Like 100%, yeah? 100%. Yes, I am doing something for the Lionsgate portal. I am running the 21-day Activate Your Archangel frequency. So that's in 2 days' time. We're starting the Activate Your Archangel frequency on Monday, which is the Lionsgate. And so we're doing the 21 days of Activate Your Archangel frequency as we'd normally do. I'm running a live stream every Monday for the group, but I'm also channeling the archangels each day as we go through, which is something I haven't done before in the group. So I'm pretty excited about that. So yes, that's what we're doing. I was called to start that on the Lionsgate portal. Okay, so... And is Bianca still here? Did I ask that? Yep, awesome. Okay, so my partner of 5 years left 2 months ago. I have 2 kids, to my husband whom passed, and my recent ex, I have a toddler together. He just upped and left. Why am I desperate for him to validate that he still loves me and admit that he had downfalls too, instead of just blaming me, which I feel is grasping at straws with this? My partner of 5 years left 2 months ago. Okay, so your current partner that left 2 months ago, you were together 5 years. You were together for 5 years. So before that, your husband passed away. Like, how long was there in between your husband passing away and this new man who's now left? If you can just let me know that. If he said he was coming back, I don't think I would want him back because he wasn't amazing to be with anyway. So why am I torturing myself? Yeah, I'll get to that. So I'll just wait for that question. Susie says, I'm in the US. I'm making a big change on August 8th. Awesome. Awesome's perfect time for it. Well, it's always a perfect time to make any change, let's be real. But it's awesome to work with energies that are supporting us for new changes. So yeah, so good. Okay. What else have we got here? Jenny says, today is my 6th year anniversary of receiving another chance to live. Winner stem cell transplant. That's so freaking awesome. Yay. That's so awesome. What a friggin' celebration that is. Okay, so Mel says, I'm so lonely. How do I feel better about being on my own and not feeling lonely and disconnected when I'm around other people? Okay, so can you give me an example of feeling lonely and disconnected when I'm around other people? Like, do you go out and, you know, go out to dinners or drink or go out partying or go out to events, or like, you know, when you say like when I'm around like people when I feel lonely, how do I not do that? Can you give me some examples of like situations that you would be in that you know, feel that way? Celebrating life. I'm celebrating life with you too, Jenny. It's so good, right? After we've come out of a hard situation and we're like, hey, it's time to freaking live now, okay? It's time to live. It's always time to live, but you know, there's certain times when we're like, okay, now I'm really ready to live. Okay, so Bianca says my husband passed away whilst I was with my recent ex. Okay, 2020. We weren't divorced. Okay. Okay, and so how long were you separated? How long were you separated before you were with him though? Jenny says, oh yes, do things you enjoy and make you happy and positive self-talk. Yes, exactly. Yes, listening to music and dance. Yeah, I was gonna say that. Wanted to ask questions first. So, okay, Bianca says 8 months. Okay. So, okay, and just with your husband, Bianca, like what happened there? Like, why did you guys separate? I know I'm asking a lot of questions, but bear with me. There's a reason. as always. And if you're just jumping on, you've got questions, ask away. There's the Q&A. Answering your questions. While we're waiting, it's nice to have quiet and let yourself be present with what is. Connecting into your heart, being aware of the energies, being aware of the space you're in. Yeah, so Bianca says mental health. So here's mental health. Okay. So I guess the reason I'm asking is because sometimes when we're like, you know, grieving about a current relationship, it can have stems into a previous relationship. Especially if we've gone from one relationship to the next reasonably quickly. Now, you know, there's nothing wrong with that, but if we haven't grieved properly from the first relationship, we're going to carry that over, sort of bury it with the next relationship. And then when this relationship ends, actually all the grief and the unresolved hurt, pain, betrayal, abandonment, whatever feelings are left buried are actually what's really surfacing here, and it's getting projected onto this current relationship because it's actually this one that needs to be healed. That is what I'm picking up there about it, is that there is like unresolved feelings, emotions from this past relationship, from your husband who's now passed away. And it's like, you know, I want to say it's being projected. It's not that you're not sad about your current relationship at all, okay? And the grief and the change that comes up from that. But I am picking up on a deeper level for you, but there is unresolved stuff from this relationship that is like making this one more amplified. So I'd be working at obviously clearing out from this one and from this one. So when you sort of ask me, you know, like what, you know, why am I torturing myself? Like the only reason that we won't let go of a relationship, even if it was bad and toxic, is because we simply haven't grieved enough. That's it. It's too painful to go there. It's too painful to grieve. So we're like, okay, we want them back. We don't, but we're just like, ah. And what's that doing? It's distracting us from dropping into the deep grief that's going to surface. Yeah. You adored your husband, there you go. Yeah. So, you know, and it's like the sort of like, I want to say betrayal of this current partner leaving, right? He just upped and left. It's kind of like, well, your husband just upped and died. Like, you know what I mean? I know that you were separated before then, but it's the same stuff. Do you know what I mean? Like underneath it's the same emotions that are being triggered. And so then deeper than that, it's looking at where you were abandoned and betrayed, and just upped and left, like from your childhood. And so it goes deeper. And then if you really want to go deeper, you look at past life stuff to clear out as well. There's always layers. Yeah. And that's why current situations can seem so like, what is happening here and why and blah, blah. It's like, because this deeper stuff is what really needs to be healed. Yeah. Yes. Can we talk about that in our Telegram chat, Karen? I know you said eventually I get the hang of it, but I'm like, let's just send me that message in Telegram and I'll speak to you about that there. Okay, so Kelly says, I always thought that I would benefit from going to a healing center for my traumas. When I would mention it, I would be steered into another direction. Okay, so, a healing center for traumas from like a government agency or a psychological agency or any of those sort of white coats sort of places is, I guess, not what I'm talking about healing. Sorry, I should have been more specific. I'm like, you know, I'm like, this is what I do in Trust Intuition. Like we clear out deep traumas, but there's a spiritual anchor that allows you to heal it and feel safe. Whereas a lot of the sort of white coat places, if you may, there's a reason why people are like, it doesn't work. Like the amount of clients that I've had come to me over the years or come into Trust Intuition and they're like, I've tried everything, I've done this, it doesn't work. So, you know, good luck with me in front of you. And I'm like, okay, let's go, you know, because, you know, it's not like what we do in Trust Intuition is not mainstream. You know what I mean? So, you know, when you say I've been steered in another direction, I'm like, well, if it was a white coat sort of place, I would be too. You know, like it's always good to explore them and just go, yeah, nah, you know what I mean? Like, but there's a certain level of understanding, and I personally believe that someone who has been through deep trauma is the sort of people that can, you know, other people that can really help you and hold space for you because they know the depth of it. You know, someone who's been trained through university hasn't, you know, unless they've been through deep trauma, you know, doesn't understand the depth of it and can't hold that. And someone who can't hold that depth, I just don't believe, it's not something I believe that someone else can shift for them. Like, you know, there's a reason why we're drawn to certain people to be able to help and heal us. That's why a lot of people who carry a lot of trauma are drawn to spirituality. Why? Because there's a deep anchor in what can heal them with that. But it's got to be the right place and someone who understands that level of trauma. Again, this is what I teach in Trust Intuition. Like, I've been doing this since 2005. Like, this is what I've lived and breathed and walked through, used myself. Like, I've helped countless clients, and now I'm training healers to do it. You know, it's yeah, that's so, I'm like, if you really want to heal, I'm like, Trust Intuition is where it's at, and or working with me one-on-one. So, you know, I mean, if you're confident doing it yourself, do it in Trust Intuition. If you need help, you know, I would definitely work on, you know, investing in yourself. Like my Life Purpose Accelerator is where you get the Trust Intuition course, and, you know, working with me one-on-one, that is the, you know, ideal, especially if you're like, no one's ever been able to help me, you know, like that's what I'd recommend. Emmy says, you helped me clear a trauma that started in past life and entered into this. Yes, exactly right. Exactly. I meant working with horses. Okay, sorry, that's a little bit different to what you said. Oh, healing center with traumas. When I would mention it, I would be student. So a healing center, like working with horses for trauma, like, so basically they use the horses to help heal trauma. Is that what you mean? We're just needing clarity and understanding that. So Vishna says, hi Vishna, I've realized when I have had trauma, I go into freeze mode. Yes, it's definitely a response. Even 2 weeks ago, a guide yelled at me, shut up, and I went into freeze mode. I couldn't talk, I couldn't hear, I just froze. How do I heal from freeze mode? Okay, I feel like my energy is still stuck in those places. Yes, so in Unhook Me, my course, there's a specific meditation to pull back from the timelines. It also will be in, what's it called? The ear chakra consciousness. Yeah, it's like pulling yourself back from different timelines. Vishnu, you're in Trust Intuition. I would work on doing a wound clearing process with the freeze. So like, if you still feel it now, or you could tap into, like, you know, do the freeze through the wound healing process. And with the timeline recalling, so I've got to do that specific meditation, but it is in Unhook Me as well, and going back along the timeline and pulling yourself back, because it won't be just from that point. There'll obviously be, you know, a point, especially from being yelled at. Do you know what I mean? And like, if we look at our childhood and upbringing, you know, like how many times were we yelled at? I mean, some parents don't yell, of course, but then there's a lot, you know, in this sort of generational ties that do. So, you know, it can be from way back, and especially if it's triggered that hard, it would be something that's clearing out from there. Yeah. So yeah, definitely you would do a wound clearing process for that. You know, like in those moments, so when that happens, like on the street or whatever, where it happened, like it's like, as soon as you come home, you go straight into the wound clearing process. Like there's been many times, not many times, there's one specific, and I'll always remember it so much, right? You know, when I tell this story in Trust Intuition, because it was so distinct, and I'm so grateful I had the tools, because fuck knows what would have happened, right? And, you know, I was like, I love running, but I could never run, right? And even back in primary school, we was like the running race, you know, and it's like everyone like races off, and I'm like, run, and then I just walk the rest of the way on the track, you know, like I just couldn't run a little bit, and then I'd have to stop, and I just walk the rest of the way. And it's been like that my whole life. And then I was probably early 20s, and my boyfriend at the time was a big runner, and you know, like exercise runner, not runner. in the relationship. And, you know, and one morning he was pushing me to run like with him, because I was like, oh, I'll just walk with you, you know. And then like on one of our walk runs, he's like pushing me to run. And he sort of like had enough of me or whatever at that point. He's like, just run. And he was really pushing me. Now, no one can really push me, but you know what I mean? It was like, I was just like, okay, you know, and I pushed myself, but I tripped into this sort of like this trauma state in a way, I guess that's what it was. And I was in Brisbane at the time, and Brisbane's really hilly at some points. Like it's got really big hills, and I lived up the top of one of the hills, and we're almost home, and like I ended up just like sprinting up the top of this hill, up the hill, and I fully like passed him. I've never run that fast in my life, right? But what was like in my mind, like I was in a forest. I was on the road, right? I was running on the footpath on the side of the road, but I was in a forest. Like it just flicked into this, like it was a past life. Like I was in a forest. It was a pine forest, and I was like people on horses chasing me, and like arrows were going into my back, right? And I literally just like fell on the ground and died. Like, and I'm like running through Brisbane, like up my head, and I just ran straight inside. I like bust open the front door, ran straight into my healing room. I had my own healing room, meditation room in that place. It was so good. And I like pulled out the tools, and I just dropped straight into it. And it was literally like, you know, I'd been shot like with arrows in the back. That's why I couldn't run. I was running for my fucking life, like for real. And I died, you know, and that past life trauma came up. And this is what we cover in Trust and Intuition. And this is why like normal trauma healing, or even like healing with animals, is really powerful, right? But if you don't have the potency, and if you don't have the correct mentors or practitioners that understand where trauma comes from, if they don't understand the multiple timelines and realities of universes that are interfering into our current life and what we bring into this life and where it comes from and all sorts of things, like, you know, and that's why some people go to a practitioner and they walk out worse than when they came in. Why? Because like that practitioner doesn't have the skills to understand like what's actually going on. And this is why I call it trust your intuition to become a certified intuitive healer and life purpose activator, because you have to trust your intuition. We learn all the skills to trust your intuition, understanding multiple timelines, understanding the realities, understanding all of those pieces. Why? Because a trauma that gets triggered in someone, or freeze mode, or fight or flight, or, you know, running, and then like past life trauma comes up. Like, you know, if I didn't have the skills to do that, I would have ended up in a psych ward, for fuck's sake, or something, or with pills, or here, have medication. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's so important to understand the depths of where trauma comes from and the different points of the timeline comes into, because if you don't, like, that's why you'll be like, oh, I did this little like, you know, course and like didn't really do anything, or I went and saw this practitioner and didn't really do anything. And it's like, yeah, well, did they clear the depth of it? Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you have to understand the depth of it. So anyway, where do we go from that? Okay, so Vishna, go and do the wound clearing process, because I know you're in Trust Intuition. That's what I recommend. But then that's the gift about having the tools and understanding how to use them, is that when that gets triggered in a day moment, you, instead of coming home and being in freeze mode for 2 weeks and still like in it sort of thing, you can come home and go straight into a wound clearing process and shift it straight away. That's the benefit of having the tools, and that's why I teach you how to do it, so that you're not like, oh, I've got to wait for my healing session with Hannah. Like, no, no, like you need to be able to do this real time, because stuff gets triggered, stuff comes up, life happens, you know? So yeah, that's that. Olivia said, trust the intuition changed my life forever. Yes. So love you in there. Oh, and Destiny, absolute game changer working one-on-one with you as well as Trust Intuition. Yeah, it's really the ultimate. I'm like, if you're serious about changing your life and you're actually serious about healing the trauma, working one-on-one with me and Trust Intuition, or Trust Intuition and doing the fucking work, is where it's at. But if you're not willing to actually like look at what's going on and actually do the work, and still going to like this healer and fix me, well then you're not ready. You're just not ready. Like, some people are like, oh, there's something wrong with you, you're not going to do it. And it's like, no, there's a readiness to look at that deep level of trauma and actually shift it. It's either a yes or it's a no. you know when you're ready, right? Kelly said, it's a trust with the animal. I didn't know quite how to explain it. Trust intuition is what I need. I just feel I'm all over the place, out of alignment. Yes. Yeah, horse and animal therapy, like I said, like art therapy, and like all of that stuff is like, it heals. but you've got to know how to use it, and you've got to know your own intuition. You've got to understand trauma for yourself to be able to, like, even if you like went to like whatever, right? So say a horse therapy or whatever, like, you know, if you have no idea about trauma, how it works, if you don't understand your own childhood patterns, if you don't understand all the sorts of bits and pieces, and if you don't have those skills on board with how to take care of yourself in traumatic situations when stuff gets triggered, like, you can go to a healing session, like I said, and you can come home worse because it's brought up all this shit. Now you don't know what to do with that when you come home, because it's not a once-off session that's going to do stuff. It's going to unlock a whole fucking pile of stuff, and then you're going to be dealing with it for the next 6-12 months. And if you do not have support or know how to deal with that yourself, you're going to be in a lot more worse situation, right? So yeah, definitely that. Yeah. Okay, let's have a look. Sabrina says, trust intuition is amazing. I'm working on the assessment questions. So awesome. And I love that we're healing as we're learning. Yeah, 100%. I feel like we need to go through it to understand it, to help people, 100%. Because we're all psychic, we're all empaths, we're all feel stuff, right? But we have to understand like what's going on, even for ourselves, to understand other clients as well, you know? Can you remind me what your question was, Mel? Carly says, my neighbor's dogs keep running to my gate and aggressively attacking, barking my gate. It is distressing to me, but the neighbors don't seem to care. Try to make no changes to change the dog's behavior. Energetically, what is around this? Could be many things. I wish I had the wits about me or something to call the fucking council before my dog attack. Like, you know, I didn't, you know, because someone had said to me after, like, they're like, well, why didn't you call the council? Like, if the, you know, because when I'd always drive past, or if anybody drove, you know, in our driveway, like, the dogs would be freaking, they're so vicious. Like, anyone who drove past would be like, those dogs are vicious. Like, you know, everybody fucking knew, even delivery drivers, whatever. Like, they're just, everybody knew, right? And someone had said to me, like, why didn't you call the council beforehand? And I'm like, I didn't really click or think about that, or like, do you know what I mean? And so, like, if I was in your situation now, I'd be calling the fucking council, and I wouldn't be letting it go until the council's come out and done something about it, because they will. Aggressive, dangerous dogs, like, honestly, it's only a matter of time. Trust me, like, call the fucking council. It doesn't matter what the fuck's going on energetically, call the fucking council. It's a bit like a domestic violence situation. It's like, call the fucking police and get the fuck out of there. Like, do you know what I mean? I'm like really strong about that. So energetically, you can sort it out after the council's come and sorted it out. Yeah. Oh, the lonely. Okay, so this is the thing about being on a Q&A or a psychic reading. You don't just drop a question in and then disappear. So okay, so that's right, because I asked you a question, if you can give me an example of situations of, like, because when you say, like, how to stop feeling disconnected and lonely when you're around people, so in a sense of, like, give me an example. So, like, do you go out partying, do you go to events, do you go to family gatherings, like, you're around friends? Like, give me an example of when you feel lonely and disconnected around people. Like, there's so much I could say about it, but give me an example first. Yeah. Okay, so Kelly says, makes sense. That's the best answer I got so far. I'm where I should be. Excellent explanation, and why. Yes, exactly, right? Perfect. You're so welcome. So I'm going to pop the Trust Intuition link in. Like I said, the early bird is open now, and it's open until the 14th. Is it 14th or 16th? Till the 16th of August, and then doors will close, and when they reopen at the end of the year, it'll be $4,444, so it's $2,997 to join. There's payment plans, of course. You also get your hard copy training manual, which is, like, so exciting to send out to you. Not that that's a thing, but hey, I love being organized and having things in places. So after like so many PDFs after all of the years, and then actually having a hard copy training manual, you know, in our hands was a really big deal to celebrate. So that's, you know, tiny little aspect of the whole training, but anyway, I'm really excited about it. Okay, so I'm just going to pop the link in for Trust Intuition. If you've got questions about it, of course, send me a message. So does anyone else have any other questions for our Q&A before I jump off? So awesome. Okay, when I go to friends' places to catch up or we go out, everyone is getting along and I feel like I'm just sitting back and no one wants to talk to me. Yes. Okay, awesome. So important that you shared that. That's why I asked the question. Okay, so number one, there's lots of different reasons why we feel alone when we're surrounded by people. Okay. You know, like I said, there's a zillion. I could write a book on it. Okay. So in short, inner child healing is something that needs to be worked on consistently for a long period of time. Again, we do that in Trust Intuition too. You know, and then it's like, you know, well, what traumas are you carrying from that? So I'm like, you better join Trust Intuition. Like for real, you know, that's where it will really sort of come clear for you. But ultimately, inner child healing, trauma wounding and clearing, and then getting back to connecting with yourself. So connecting with your life, connecting with what's important to you, connecting with, you know, like having fun again, like not with friends, with yourself. Usually people who feel very lonely are usually quite unhappy in their life, right? And so it's like making changes that will allow you to, you know, like make your life happy again. Yeah, and that can stem back to like, when was the last time you were happy? Okay, well maybe I don't actually remember being happy in my life. It's like, okay, cool. You need like to do some work on your childhood healing and work on family trauma, and you know, again, this is what we're doing, Trust Intuition. So, but you know, it's like you need to find happiness in your own life, with your body, with your health, with the way you show up in life, with what you do in life. Like, where's your passion? Where's your happiness? Oh, I don't have it. It's like, okay, you start there. Yeah, and it's like if we're not connected to ourselves, we're going to feel lonely around other people. Yeah, it's a disconnection from yourself. Yeah, Trust Intuition. It's like everything's in Trust Intuition. Like for real, that's why it's a 6-month comprehensive training. Like I cover everything, and you know, it's like Trust Intuition. It's like, oh yeah, Trust Intuition. It's like it's so deep into the layers of it. Yeah. So what type of energies are going on right now? Like what the universe, like, because I can sure feel it. Yes. Does it have to do with the moon, or is it more than it? It's just, yeah, you really feel the energy. So actually, I'm not sure if you just joined, but in the start of the live stream, so maybe the first 15-20 minutes, I really spoke about the universal collective energies going on. So make sure you watch the replay, you know, just like I said, that I don't know, it's about 15-20 minutes in, maybe something like that. You know, that first 20 minutes is like, yeah, when I spoke about that. So definitely watch the replay for that bit. Jenny says, I feel an impending doom is looming with government plans, makes me anxious. How can I not feel so worried? Yeah, so stop watching TV, stop watching news, stop listening to other people who have got negative mindset about it, stop listening to Main Street people. Like, you know, number one is to remove yourself from listening and absorbing all the stuff, and to just make your life as stable, secure, happy, trusting as possible. Yeah, set yourself up, right? We're always going to be worried about what they're doing if we're not secure in ourselves and also in our life. Yeah, and there's a difference between being secure in ourselves and like, I need to like get everything ready for survival, because you know, there's a difference between being prepared and like freaking out that we're going into survival. So, you know, and that impending doom and like something bad's going to happen is also trauma response from deep stuff. So it sounds like you need Trust Intuition as well. I know I keep saying it, but I'm like, for real guys, like, you know, I don't teach nothing for a reason. Like, you know what I mean? It's like I teach things like with purpose. Like, anyway, you get it, right? Awesome for going back and watching it. Mel says, thank you. My friends keep saying I need to fix myself before I get a man, and it's not about having a man. I just don't want to feel less alone, as in people never check in on me. Yeah, so check in with yourself. Yeah, exactly. So Destiny just said it. Check in with yourself first, and then everything else will follow. Yeah, Trust Intuition would be really supportive for you, I think, Mel. Yeah, it might be something to consider. All right, does anyone else have anything else to ask before I jump off? All right, just check if there's any last questions. It's nice to connect with you guys. I haven't been on live for ages because I've been through the massivest transformation. And yes, that's a word that I just created. So get used to it. Get used to it. Go to learn and meet your own unmet needs 100%. 100%. And that can come with a lot of grief when we start doing that because we've never had that met. And we're like, and we've also abandoned ourselves. We feel abandoned by other people when we've abandoned ourselves. It's all about reconnecting back to yourself at the end of the day. And that can come with a lot of grief because of how it's been like this for so long and nobody's been there and blah, blah, blah. It's big. That's why having a supportive space is important. Yeah. Yes, there is payment plans, 100%. If you click on the link and then click on the button, it'll take you through to the different payment plan options. Yeah. For sure. Okay, well that feels done. I'm gonna love you and leave you. Thank you for being here. Create a beautiful weekend and I shall see you very soon. Bye.